Hello everyone, my name is Neil Pettigrew and I'm Vice President of Exploration and a Director of Palladium One, and I'm very pleased to be talking to you guys today. Palladium One is a battery metals focused junior with operations in Canada and Finland, and most recently it has been our Tyko project in Ontario, where we've had extraordinarily high-grade nickel drill intercepts that has been the focus of the company.
Hi Neil, good to be talking to you again. Thanks for coming on the show. Now, just to start off with, I think it'd be really helpful if you could recap what happened in 2022. You know, obviously there was a lot going on. Quick summary of 2022, please.
We actually had a very significant year last year with an exploration discovery success. It also saw the first resource update on our LK project in Finland, in which we doubled that resource to 4 million ounces palladium equivalent. However, that did come out in April, just as the market rolled over, with the effect of the war in Ukraine, and thus it really didn't get the traction that we were hoping for with it. However, Tyko has been a very good news story. We've had the discovery of the West Pickle zone, another analog to the high-grade Smoke Lake zone. And so we've been having a great deal of exploration success. We've had a lot of delays in the assays from the lab, obviously. So as you probably saw with the last one, we have a lot pending assays. So a lot of the news flow that actually was done last year will be coming out this year, as we just saw.
You say you've had the discovery at Tyko, and what was it? Hole 70 was the spectacular hole. Remind me what that, it was.
That was very nice looking stuff.
It was 10% nickel over several meters. And as when I went through this most recent news release, I saw that you were releasing holes from hole 68 to 73. So you'd obviously seen that hole 70 was a kind of a winner, and that was over in Smoke Lake over to the east. And
well, that's West Pickle,
right sorry. That 67 to
70, those are all West Pickle holes. We haven't released any Smoke Lake results yet this year.
Oh, you haven't released any Smoke Lake. So that I thought that very good result was from Smoke Lake. No, it's from West Pickle.
This is one of the things that we're not getting recognition in the market. This is a brand new discovery. Smoke Lake was a brand new discovery 2 years ago. This is a brand new discovery. All the recent results have been West Pickle, and those results from hole 70 were actually even the highest grade assay. We're talking, 13% nickel. So I mean, in an individual assay, I would say that we're very good at being systematic and adding value to projects, and that is what we're going to be doing. And I do believe that is why we have support on the financial end, and I do believe the share price will follow that eventually.
Okay, so on that financing, you're referring to the fact that you've done a flow-through financing, and you've got, I think, $11 million, $11.3 million as at the end of the year, so a few weeks ago.
Correct. Yes, so that includes the flow-through and the hard dollar tally from the company. And this is one of the strengths of Palladium One, is unlike many juniors that have a few months of operation in the kitty, we're very well positioned to take advantage of this market. If this market continues to deteriorate, there will be buying opportunities, and we will look at those. But right now, we are very focused on Tyko. We've obviously cashed up for this year, so we have another $5 million budget for Tyko. And this is going to really be targeting these Chonolith structures. So we're going to be moving from the high grade that we've seen at West Pickle and Smoke, and looking for the source of this remobilized sulphide, which we do believe is out there. And we have hints of it, like at RJ with that 85 meters of 0.5% nickel, 2% copper.
So $5 million for Tyko. Good. I've registered that. Just going back to the assays from last year and the drilling that you've seen from last year, the news release from this week says you've got another 49 holes pending. Are those from holes 73 and higher, or some of those earlier holes that didn't look good and got pushed to the back of the queue?
No. If you look at our news releases, we are caught up to 73. We've released everything from when we started drilling to hole 73. We're quite transparent about that. The holes that are remaining are coming in from the labs, and they are starting to come in. We will have other subsequent releases as they come, but you've got to remember that we were facing 3+ months delay on nickel assays. Even rush assays were taking close to 2 months. It was ridiculous. So, I mean, this is
and has that backlog cleared?
Well, it's still chewing through. We haven't got all the assays back yet. So stuff that I sent in December, probably won't be done until March, or, late February at the earliest. And that is a bit of the fact of life in the sector right now. So you're seeing a lag in the results. So you're going to see a lot of results flowing in through here. And we have done a lot of additional drilling in addition to West Pickle. We drilled quite a bit on the Smoke, especially the greater area around Smoke Lake. We did reconnaissance work out at the RJ and the Tyko zone, including some surrounding targets. So there is a lot more stuff other than West Pickle that's coming down the pipeline.
And you can't talk about the visuals on those. Well, it's probably better not to, isn't it? Because just probably better to wait for the assays. But do you feel as if you've got a handle on your targeting?
I do think we have a handling on targeting, and we don't put out visuals all the time. So I know many companies do, and we have done them in the past when we have something spectacular like West Pickle or Smoke to talk about, right? If you drill around Smoke, you're going to get massive sulphide. So that's no longer a material visual release in my books, unless you've got, say 25 meters of massive sulfide. Yes, I would do something about that. But I think we're going to have some very nice results coming from our subsequent assays. And I can tell you that visually we know what we saw and we know what our targeting is going to be. And this is why we are really kind of focused into this Chonolith story. And it's really the development that we saw from last year. It's like one of the things that I keep trying to get across to this property is that this is a new area. We're not working in an area with a geological database or a lot of past drilling or anything like that. We are building our database as we go. And so, late summer, early fall, we realized that, hey, there is a lot more ultramafic rocks on this property. These Chonolith structures are real. They are out there. We tested one with hole 76. RJ had that 85-meter zone. All of a sudden, we realized that, wow, there's a lot more ultramafic rocks and hence bulk tonnage targets on this property than we realized. And this is probably why we are seeing these very high-grade zones like West Pickle and Smoke coming out, is that these are the remob zones. They're easy to see in the EM. The more disseminated, net textured material that could be out in those Chonoliths is not going to show in the EM. And so that's what we're really going to be focused on this year, is going out ground truthing that. In fact, we have a high-resolution mag survey starting up within days that will help in the modeling, both in the 2D and the 3D, for these Chonolith structures, which will be the focus of this year's program.
I was going to ask about that because, you talk about the mag survey and quite a lot of your images seem to have quite a good mag survey anyway, but presumably the resolution that you're looking for, or the quality of the image is greater so that you can map these Chonoliths, these feeder zones in the subsurface, and will it give you an indication of the remobilization zones as well? Will it give you the kind of the weak signal for that will match up with the EM that you seem to think is the kind of that you've linked to the higher grade, narrower zones?
Well, yes, I do think it will help with both. So what we have challenged at Tyko, and yes, we have a good survey. It was done with the geotech, but it's just a single detector, 100 meter space. We're going to be doing 75 meters or tighter spacing with a very devoted mag system. And that's going to provide us with that resolution which we need, because we have a lot of interference with the mag. We have a couple of different diabase dike sets that need to be filtered out. And then the problem of non-magnetic mineralized rocks is the bulk of the mineralization that we found thus far is in non-mineralized or non-magnetic rocks. However, they are proximal to magnetic rocks. So basically the proxenites are unmineralized. They are the general host of the mineralization, but the peridotites can be mineralized. And they tend not to have as much, but they are the ones that show up. So you basically use them as vectors to get yourself close to where you want to be. And that's what we're really going to be doing here, is refining that geological model and going out and ground truthing those things. And so that's really kind of what we're at, is that I liken this property to working in some places in Africa and somewheres where you come in and you're not given this beautiful data set. You have to go out and create your own data set. So that's sort of what we're doing here, is now that we're onto the Chonoliths as one of the main targets here, we need to refine that model. We're not just hunting VTEM anomalies now. We're going to be looking at defining these structures over several kilometers, we think, and then finding the sweet spots along them to drill test.
When I look at your map, in the west, you've got West Pickle, and then there's a gap about 3Ks to RJ, and then below that is another about 3Ks to Tyko, and then it's kind of 20Ks to Smoke Lake. I'm just trying to get my head around what you're going to see as a success story in 2023? Is it going to be the drilling of the interconnecting zones, or are you going to be trying to find one Chonolith zone, or you're going to drill out one of the high grade narrow sulphide zones?
So success is going to be a bit of both. We obviously are going to continue to expand West Pickle. Who wouldn't? The big question is going to be how much more we find in these surrounding areas, right? So, if I throw up this slide here quickly, and I promise not to do this very often. Okay, so this is the image you're talking about, right? This is the one from the most recent presentation. And this is showing these Chonolith structures, right? So imagine what we know about the project being a little circle around Smoke and West Pickle, right? And tiny ones around RJ and Tyko. And I'm talking like, once you get more than 500 meters outside of these zones, we have no geological information as far as on the boots mapping, this kind of stuff. So getting out onto these Chonolith structures and doing basic prospecting, mapping, and soils is really going to be a key thing for focusing the drilling this year. And so once we've improved the modeling with the new mag survey, that boots on the ground is really what we're going to be doing. And you got to remember that this is a disrupted signature. You have these strong dikes that you can see going through the northwest and the northeast, and these are those later diabases, and they just clutter the mag. So we're really working at trying to see through that clutter to improve our targeting on these Chonolith structures.
And you mentioned that the one of the rocks, the peridotite, is going to lead you to the mag structure, but that's not necessarily the main mineralization, and actually there might be mineralization proximal to that. How do you go from the target of the peridotite to actually your main goal?
So this one is a great example of using the magnetic rocks to vector your way in, right? So this is also from the latest news release. So here we have that 100 plus meters of ultramafic and one hole, right? Now you can see there's gaps where there's not visual high ultramafics. However, you had West Pickle that sits next to these things. You have RJ that sits next to these things. And so what we think we have going on is you're just not seeing those non-magnetic rocks, which tend to be the host of the mineralization. So with a more refined survey, we may pick up some of these very subtle features that sit next to those highly magnetic rocks and vector in on those. Also doing soils has worked fantastic for us. That's how Smoke Lake was found. West Pickle also produced a strong signature when we did it. So that is really going to be one of our focuses there. But this sort of exemplifies that, there's red bullseyes, but maybe that's not exactly where you want to be. We could have a situation where there's unmineralized or non-magnetic rock in between, and we also have the potential for more remob at depth. One of the concepts we've looked at is that we actually see less of the high grade when we see more preservation of the ultramafic rocks. So perhaps these are simply deeper and beyond the reach of the airborne VTAM survey we did. So additional geophysics to target deeper mineralization between these two zones is also on the books.
Okay, so thank you. Don't keep this image up, please. So
Yep.
Really, what you're saying is that you can pick up the Chonoliths very clearly, and those are going to come out in the high res mag, and so that's going to give you the better handle on the Chonoliths, and then things get subtle. This is kind of the art and the science of exploration, and you're going to have to do geochemistry, field prospection, and mapping where you can, and see if those coincident indicators from the surface, the geochemistry and the mapping, tie up with a subtle potential geophysical signal, and those will generate your drill targets.
Yes, so it's going to be a combination of field work, and that will help find the stuff that cannot be detected through EM, plus deeper EM studies to look for, those buried lenses. And that'll be either some ground surveys that we're looking at, also drilling some deeper holes in borehole EM this summer as well.
Yeah.
So there is going to be a twofold. We're going to look for the bulk tonnage target, and then we're going to look for more of those high grade zones as well. And, this is just a small section of the large property. Obviously, the area between West Pickle and RJ is sort of one of the higher priority areas, But we have so many of these chonoliths on the property that we really need to go through the prioritization process to see which other ones might really warrant drilling this year.
Is your mag survey going to cover the chonoliths, the main kind of belt in the southern half of your permit area? And is it going to, are you going to be able to cover that with enough geochemistry to be able to do that ranking exercise this year?
We are going to be going out with a small army this year, so we're not going to be able to cover everything, obviously. However, those chonoliths are fairly discrete structures, so this is why we really want that geophysics to kind of help winnow us in on those areas, is that we're going to get on those things along strike and follow them along strike. And, many of them may be swamps, and so they're just going to be either drill tested or not, but this area has never been mapped by the Ontario Geological Survey. When Smoke Lake was found with those soil samples, I went out there myself and found mineralized boulders on surface, right? So this is the kind of stuff that people think about 100 years ago. But, we may well find actual showings outcropped on surface, boulders for sure, in some of these areas that are mineralized. And so that kind of basic geology is really required before you just start punching a whack of holes. Like, this is one of the reasons that we don't throw 5 or 6 drill holes or drills on this target at a time, is that we are working systematically. And that has served us very well on this project for discovery success.
And on that note, when do you think the rigs will be mobilized?
I think they will be near the end of the second quarter. We are hopeful that it's been a warm winter. We'll get out early this spring. We want to get some of that field work in before we start punching holes in. And
you'll also want to have the geophysics interpreted and all of the data from the first phase of drilling, that's going to suck as much juice out of those of that information kind of host as possible.
Yeah. So, obviously we do need to have that $5 million budget, and that's still going to be fairly drill heavy. So we may have multiple rigs, but they are going to be more focused to the end of the year rather than this winter. And that will segue actually pretty well with the lab, since we're not going to have all those results back until, late February, early March anyways. So I would say that we have a plan for the property, and, it has worked thus far. We're continuing to be systematic, and we have a great deal of potential on this project. It is really kind of an early stage project, really, at the end of the day.
What's the feedback that you've been getting about the concept about Tyko as a new play? I don't know if you've been speaking to any investors or whether you've been working solely on the technical side, but what's it felt like from where you've been sitting?
I think part of it is the misunderstanding of how quickly exploration can advance, right? So if we use Talon as an example, you have a situation where there had been years of exploration devoted to that project before they came in. In fact, they spent a couple of years themselves before they really had that success and moved along on that project. And so people see this timeline as like, well, you get that first high-grade hole, you should have a resource out by the end of the year, and we should be mining, in a couple of years' time. And that's not quite the case here. This is a more complicated story. Talon is basically in situ. It hasn't moved since the day it was in place. This property has had a lot of structure and alteration and remobilization to it. And so there is more complexity to work through. And so just because we have, a hole 70, which, is absolutely spectacular. I've never seen pentlandite eyes like that anywhere. The nickel grades are huge. That doesn't mean that the resource is coming out in 6 months' time. So I think there might be a bit of misunderstanding on the stages of exploration in that regard. But I think the other bit is just that the market is not really that receptive to this right now, right? So, there are a few bright spots in the market, obviously, but on the whole, it has been a bit of a rough ride, no question about it.
So, what you've effectively said, that these things take time. And you've got the holes coming out in the next quarter. But really, what the market's got to hang on to is the scope and the scale of the play.
That's really kind of what it is that it's the stage of this play, right? So this thing is still, despite our successes, at a fairly early stage. And you guys remember, if we took out the permitting delays, we found like smoke in West Pickle in less than 12 months. So, we are advancing it. However, there is a speed limit to which it can happen. Now, that all may change if we drill into one of these chonoliths and hit 100 plus meters of, 0.7 nickel or something like that, right? I mean, that could really change the dynamics because we really haven't focused on these Chonolith structures thus far. So, we are shifting gears somewhat, but that's really as a result of increased knowledge about the project as we go.
Yeah. I always say that discovery is an incremental process of de-risking. And you stretch the elastic band, and then you never know when it's going to move the market. But eventually, when it seems if there's enough information out there, suddenly you can get you can get the re-rating in the market. And of course, occasionally there's a humdinger of a hole which does it for you. But quite often it's a slow realization. It's a slow dawning.
I would say it's a systematic approach, right? And so, being a geologist, I mean, this is something that I pride myself on, is being systematic and de-risking targets, right? So there's a reason that, we tend to have a very high exploration success, is that we invest in the geophysics and we invest in the ground truthing so that by the time you start putting those holes in, you are hitting your targets, right? So, I mean, yes, you could drill faster, you could do less prep. You are asking for trouble in those cases. So, I think that we will be given market recognition for the path that we have chosen. It is unfortunate where the stock price is right now, and we are working to change that. I think that there are a few companies in our position, though, with such a healthy treasury and advanced projects and high-grade nickel projects that re-rate is coming sooner than we think.
Great. Well, Neil, I look forward to catching you on the way up as you do that re-rate process. Perhaps we could speak again either after all the results are in or once you're working on the field program. But keep me up to date with progress. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, very thank you as well. And I always look forward to talking with you, Marlon.